A quiet pool, a tired woman, and a stranger who thought he had the right to question her presence. What he didn't know. She had lived there for over a decade and was also a federal agent. This isn't just a story about a misunderstanding. It's about power prejudice and what happens when silence speaks louder than shouting. Stay to the end because what unfolds will challenge how you see your neighbors and yourself. That afternoon, the pool at Lakeside Grove shimmered in the golden light. Water splashed, children's laughter echoed. People sipped drinks under wide umbrellas. It was all ordinary. Until Selena Warren stepped through the gate. She wore simple navy joggers, a loose gray hoodie, and sandals. Her locks were tied in a bun. No makeup, no badge. Just a tired black woman in her 50s looking for one thing: silence. She had served in the FBI for over 20 years. But today she was just a neighbor, a resident, a woman who needed peace after 3 grueling weeks of briefings and travel. She gave Luis, the young lifeguard, a familiar nod. He responded, "Good afternoon, Ms. Warren," as he always did. Selena settled into her favorite chair near the shallow end, unscrewed her water bottle, and exhaled slowly. She didn't want to think about reports, superiors, or politics. Just the breeze, the sun, the hush of summer. She closed her eyes until she heard footsteps. They were confident, heavy steps. She didn't open her eyes. She knew the type. A man's voice followed. "Excuse me, do you live here?" Selena opened her eyes slowly. Yes, he didn't smile. He stood tall, white mid-50s, crisp polo shirt, pressed khakis. "Really, that's strange. I've lived here a whole month and never seen you. I've lived on Oak Ridge Drive since 2013, she said calmly. He folded his arms. "We've had issues, outsiders sneaking in. You understand why I have to ask." Selena didn't move. "I came through the gate like everyone else. You don't have a key fob on you." He pointed. "It's in my bag." He tilted his head. "You can make this easy, or I can call the HOA board." Selena looked straight at him. "Feel free. They know me." He didn't move. "I just find it odd. We've never crossed paths." Selena leaned back slightly. "Maybe you've just been looking in the wrong direction." He didn't leave. Instead, he stepped closer. "We've got rules. You should understand." Selena stayed calm. "I told you I'd live here." His voice grew sharper. "No need for the attitude. And I don't need to be interrogated at my own pool." A subtle tension filled the air. People nearby glanced over, not staring, just sensing the shift. The young mom paused mid-sunscreen. Luis removed one earbud. He pointed at her bag. "So why not just show me the fob?" "Because I don't owe you anything," Selena said. "You decided I didn't belong the moment you saw me." His jaw tightened. "You're making this harder than it has to be." "No," she said, "you are." He blinked, visibly rattled. "You came over like a mall cop trying to catch someone. You didn't ask, you accused. And now that you're wrong, you won't admit it." More people were listening now. No one said a word. Grayson, the man, refused to back down. "I've got a daughter. What if someone shady came in here pretending?" Selena raised a hand. "You saw a black woman sitting alone and decided I was suspicious. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't flinch. You didn't question the teenagers or the elderly couple. Just me." He flushed, not red, but it showed. "You could have walked over and said, 'Hi, I'm new here.' I might have offered you a drink. But instead, you tried to check me, like I was trespassing." From across the pool, an older woman called out, "Selena, want us to call Ken." "He's home." Selena turned, smiled gently. "No need, Mrs. Porter. Just a little misunderstanding." Grayson's face hardened. His pride wouldn't let him retreat. He stayed arms crossed again, but now his posture no longer felt like confidence. It looked like fear of losing control. Selena knew that stance. She'd seen it in courtrooms, boardrooms, and sidewalks. Still, Grayson pressed on. "You could have ended this quietly." "You mean let you win?" Selena asked, voice calm. "Let you feel justified," he said weakly. "I'm not trying to be the bad guy. I moved here because I care about this place," she said. "I've served on the security committee, helped rewrite the HOA guidelines. I know everyone's name here, Luis. Mrs. Porter, Mark Caldwell." Grayson said nothing. Selena looked at him. "And don't say this isn't about race. If I looked like Carol from Lot 23, we wouldn't be having this conversation." She slowly reached into her bag. No dramatics. She pulled out a black wallet, opened it. Her badge gleamed in the sun. "Selena M. Warren, Special Agent, FBI." The gold caught in his eye. He blinked. I don't lead with this, Selena said, because I don't need to. Louise stood. The mom hugged her child tighter. Everyone was watching. Grayson whispered, I didn't realize. You assumed, Selena replied, and you were wrong. She closed the badge and leaned back in her chair. And just like that, she reclaimed the space that had always been hers. Grayson didn't leave right away. He lingered, arms crossed again, trying to look composed. But Selena saw it clearly. After decades in law enforcement, she could read body language better than words. He wasn't in control. He was exposed. And he knew it. The teenager near the deep end watched closely, phone still in hand, though the screen remained dark. She didn't need to record. This wasn't a show. It was a lesson. Louise stood fully now on the lifeguard chair, earbuds out, alert. Other poolgoers had gone quiet. Conversations, hushed ears turned. Grayson tried one more time. Seriously, what harm is there in just showing your fob? Without looking at him, Selena replied. Because this was never about a fob. You weren't looking for proof. You wanted obedience. Her words hit him harder than he expected. His mouth opened, but no sound came. You walked up to a stranger with judgment, not respect. And now you're embarrassed that I didn't fold. The weight of her words hung in the air. No yelling, no drama, just the unmistakable shift of power. Grayson muttered, "This is ridiculous." "You mean because I didn't play along?" she asked. "I'm not trying to be the bad guy," he repeated. "You say you care about this neighborhood," Selena said. "So do I. That's why I pay dues. That's why I served on the HOA safety committee after the 2018 incident. That's why I know people's names here." She paused, then added softly, "And that's why it stings when someone walks up and decides I don't belong without a single question." Grayson opened his mouth again, but Selena cut in. "And don't tell me this isn't about race. Because if I look like Mrs. Anderson or Carol from Lot 19, you would have smiled and walked by." He froze. She wasn't angry, just honest. Honest enough to shake his foundation. Grayson's pride had nowhere to land. The ground beneath him had cracked quietly, steadily, and everyone around him could feel it. The pool had gone still. Water still sparkled. Kids still giggled. But the mood had shifted. "I didn't mean anything by it," he finally said. Selena let the silence stretch. That was power too, not to speak, not to defend, just to be. "You don't have to raise your voice to make a scene," she said after a pause. "And you don't need to shout to make people uncomfortable. Sometimes the most dangerous things are said quietly with a smile." Grayson looked down at his shoes. "If you really live here," he said. Barely audible. "Then I suppose I owe you an apology." Selena turned her gaze to him. "You suppose?" He tried to smile, but it faltered. "Well, I didn't know. Should I have worn a name tag?" she asked. "Or maybe introduced myself with my resume?" He had no reply. Selena reached slowly into her bag, not for validation, but for clarity. She opened the leather wallet. Her FBI badge gleamed bold and unmistakable. Selena M. Warren, Special Identified Agent. Grayson stepped back slightly, blinking at the realization. The teen near the pool lowered her phone. She didn't need a recording. The moment had already etched itself in her memory. Louise stood taller now. Mrs. Porter watched over her sunglasses, lips pursed in quiet pride. "I don't lead with this," Selena said, "because I shouldn't have to." Grayson swallowed hard. I didn't realize." "You assumed," Selena said. "Not based on anything I did, but based on what you saw. That's the problem. You could have said hi. I might have offered you a soda from my cooler. Instead, you tried to control me in a space I've helped keep safe for years." Selena stood. She didn't tower over him. She didn't raise her voice. She just stood taller in presence than any badge could ever make her. Mrs. Porter called from her lounge chair, voice calm and steady. "We know who you are, Selena. We always have." Selena gave a quiet nod. "Thank you, Flo." Another voice joined in, Carl, a retired teacher from down the block. "Pool's all yours, Chief." Grayson stood frozen for a second more. Then, defeated and speechless, he turned and walked away. Whatever words he muttered under his breath were lost to the wind and to everyone's care. The toddler squealed with joy as her mother finally got her into the water. Louise sat back down, both earbuds in now. The pool slowly returned to normal. Selena pulled her sunglasses back on, took a sip of water, and leaned back. No victory lap, no gloating, because her power didn't come from her badge. It came from the fact that she never needed to raise her voice to be heard. The next few days, no one called it the pool incident anymore. People had found a different the silence that got loud. Because after that day, Lakeside Grove didn't feel quite the same. An Asian woman could walk her dog in the early morning without being asked if she was lost. A brown-skinned teenager could ride his bike past the gate without suspicious looks. Luis, the lifeguard, even taped up a new handwritten note near the pool rules. Respecting your neighbors is the first condition of safety. One Saturday morning, as Selena walked out of the coffee shop with a latte, a young woman approached. Sure. Business casual clothes, baby in one arm, anxiety in her eyes. Ms. Warren, she said quietly, I was at the pool that day. I didn't say anything. I was scared. But after that meeting, I started to realize I need to change that. Selena gently squeezed her hand. No scolding, no lectures. Because she understood sometimes standing up doesn't start with a shout. It starts with not turning away. The following week, Selena accepted an invitation from a local high school teacher, Miss Miller, to speak to a senior civics class. Not about the FBI, but about what had happened at the pool. She stood in front of 30 young eyes, some knowing, some curious, some unsure. You know, Selena began, there are two kinds of power in the world, the kind that commands and the kind that makes people reflect. A student raised a hand. Do you ever wish you had handled it differently? Selena thought for a second, then smiled. Of course. Part of me wanted to stand up, flash the badge in 5 seconds. But if I had, how many people without badges would have been expected to stay silent? The room went completely quiet. No one took notes. But every eye locked in. That day, Selena wasn't just a guest speaker. She was a living lesson, a lesson in dignity that didn't need to yell to be heard. While the community slowly shifted, Grayson Whitmore went through the strangest days of his life. He wasn't arrested, he wasn't fined, but every morning he had to look in the mirror and see a man he hadn't realized he was. His first bias awareness class made him feel like a student caught cheating. The instructor, a soft-spoken black woman, told a story almost identical to Selena's. A man once asked a black woman if she really lived in the neighborhood. The question seemed harmless to him, but to her it was a cut too familiar. Grayson said nothing. That night he sat in his garage watching the pool footage he had once pulled to justify himself. For the first time, he didn't see a stranger in Selena. He saw himself using authority he never earned. Not because he was evil, but because he'd never been taught to see others through respect first. One late Wednesday evening, Selena returned from a long shift, not chasing criminals, but leading an FBI volunteer team for a local homeless outreach. She set her bag down and went to pour water, then noticed a small envelope slipped under her front door. No name on it, just to Miss Selena Warren. Inside was a single sheet of plain paper, handwritten, the script slightly shaky. I thought I was a good person. I go to work. I teach my kid to respect the law. I greet neighbors. But I never realized I carry a quiet kind of prejudice until that day at the pool. I didn't recognize you, but I assumed you didn't belong. Not because of anything you did, just because you looked different. I don't ask for forgiveness. I just want you to know I'm learning. Slowly. As a father, as a neighbor, and as a man. No signature. But Selena knew not everyone had the courage to send a confession like this. 1 month after that unforgettable day, Lakeside Grove held its annual fall festival. Kids in costume, adults carrying pies, laughter ringing from booths and food stands. But something was different this year. No one was being watched for the wrong reasons. Selena was invited to give the opening remarks. She declined. Instead, she helped run the ring toss booth, handing out lollipops and laughing like the world had never tried to tell her she didn't belong. Still among those who'd seen the pool incident, she was the unspoken center of it all. Toward the end, Mrs. Porter approached her, gently laying a hand on her shoulder. You didn't just make them quiet, she said softly. You made them think. And that lasts longer than any speech. Selena smiled, handed a prize to a child. She didn't need applause. She just needed to know that from now on, a woman sitting by the pool wouldn't be questioned for the color of her skin. A week later, Selena stopped by the community clubhouse bulletin board during her morning walk. Something new had been taped up. In bold black letters, Know Your Neighbors. Below was a photo from last year's HOA holiday party. Selena in a navy blazer, smiling, shaking hands with a city councilman. Her FBI badge clipped visibly to her lapel. Scrawled beneath in blue ink, to the man who told her to leave, maybe read the newsletter next time. Selena didn't laugh. She simply stood there a moment, not because it was petty, but because it was truth served with just enough wit to remind people of what they'd all witnessed and what it meant. That same afternoon, Selena was weeding the small flower bed in front of her porch when a teenage girl in running shoes jogged by, slowed, and took out one earbud. "Hey, you're the FBI lady, right?" Selena smiled gently. "That's me." The girl hesitated. "You were awesome the other day." Selena stood wiping her hands on her gardening gloves. "Thanks," she said, then added, "But you know, standing your ground shouldn't be considered awesome." The girl blinked. "What should it be, normal?" The girl nodded slowly. "Yeah, I guess you're right." She jogged off. And just like that, Selena saw it. A seed planted. Not with shouting, but with quiet certainty. That evening, a knock came at Selena's door. "Mr. Chambahao." Franklin from across the street stood there holding a casserole dish with foil stretched tight across the top. He grinned sheepishly. "Don't worry, it's not a Southern thing. My wife's from New Jersey. It's just potatoes and cheese." Selena chuckled and invited him in for a glass of sweet tea. They sat on the porch as the sunset painted the sky orange and blue. After a while, Franklin cleared his throat. "We all saw what happened. Not everybody spoke up, but we heard it." Selena didn't respond right away. She didn't need to. The silence between them had its own kind of conversation. And in that stillness, trust began to rebuild brick by quiet brick. Monday morning. The usual sounds returned: trash trucks, barking dogs, sprinklers clicking on. Selena buttoned her blouse, brushed imaginary creases from her collar, and pinned her badge to her belt. In the mirror, her reflection looked the same, but something felt different. Not because of what happened at the pool, but because people saw it. And more importantly, they understood it. That kind of confrontation wasn't rare. It wasn't extreme. It was quiet, routine, hidden under words like concern and civic duty. And now that kind of everyday prejudice had a name, a face, and a witness in every corner of the neighborhood. Around noon, Selena stopped by the corner cafe. Jonah, the barista, was already reaching for her usual. "You're trending again," he said with a smirk. "Windermere chat's blowing up. Apparently someone got schooled at the pool." Selena shook her head, smiling faintly. "I didn't do anything special." "That's exactly why it stuck," Jonah replied, handing her the cup. As she stepped outside, her phone buzzed with a new email. No subject, no name, just words. "I was at the pool that day. My daughter was too. She saw what you did. And I think she learned more in 10 minutes watching you than she has all year in school. Thank you for showing us the difference between authority and grace." Selena read the message twice, then put the phone away quietly and walked on. She wasn't looking for applause. She had shown them what strength looked like, and she did it without ever raising her voice. That evening, the HOA called a special meeting. The invite didn't say why, but everyone knew. The room was packed more than usual. This time, people weren't glancing at their phones. They were waiting. Grayson Whitmore walked in alone. No polo shirt, no smug smile, just a man holding a few folded sheets of paper. He didn't go to the mic right away. He turned towards Selena, seated in the front row. She met his eyes not with hostility, but with readiness. Then he began. "I spent the last few weeks looking in the mirror, not for excuses, but for the truth." His voice trembled, but he kept reading. Grayson read aloud. "I saw Selena Warren and thought outsider. Not because she did anything wrong, but because I was raised to question people who didn't look like me. I thought I was protecting the neighborhood. What I was really doing was protecting my privilege." A hush fell over the room. No one moved. "I told myself I wasn't racist, that I was just checking. But when I refused to believe her, even after she spoke, I wasn't checking anymore. I was denying." He looked up. "Selena, I don't expect forgiveness, but I thank you for not walking away, for showing all of us what dignity really looks like." Selena didn't speak. She didn't need to. She placed a hand over her heart, and that was enough. Days later, Selena received a letter, handwritten, neatly folded, from Lena, the teenage girl who had been sitting by the pool. "I always thought being quiet was how you stay safe when you look like me. But that day I watched you sit still while someone tried to shrink you and you didn't move. That changed me. A week later, when a classmate mocked a boy's accent, I stood up. First time in my life, my voice shook. But I stood. Thank you for showing me that courage doesn't need volume, just presence." Selena folded the letter, placed it beside an old photo of her late daughter. She smiled. A tear slipped down, not from sorrow, but from something like hope. At the fall festival, something new appeared, a photo exhibit titled Moments That Matter. Right in the center, a picture of Selena sitting at the pool, sunlight hitting her shoulders. Grayson standing in front of her, his arms at his sides. Silent, caught mid-realization. No caption, just a line. When you look at someone, ask yourself, are you seeing or assuming? Visitors walk by quietly. Some paused, others nodded. At the edge of the crowd, Luis helped hang paper lanterns. Lena handed out candy to kids. Selena sat beside Mrs. Porter on a bench sipping cocoa. You know, Mrs. Porter whispered, you didn't just change the rules, you changed the rhythm. Selena smiled. And for once, she said softly, I didn't have to fight to breathe. I just had to stay. One spring morning, Selena tied her shoes for a run, her first in months. At the clubhouse bulletin board, a fresh flyer caught her eye. New series, one neighbor, one story, first speaker, Selena M. Warren. She smiled, not out of pride but recognition. Change had taken root. She no longer needed to prove she belonged, because now others were learning to see beyond assumption. As she jogged past trim lawns and quiet driveways, she thought back to that day by the pool. No badge, no confrontation, just calm. And that calm had spoken louder than any uniform ever could. She didn't have to raise her voice. She just had to stand her ground and let others learn from the silence that followed. You don't need to shout to be powerful. You don't need to prove yourself to those who've already made up their minds. You only need to carry yourself with truth. Because sometimes dignity isn't loud, but it's unforgettable.